Everybody, so I'm going to talk about why our most recent purchase can even talk, which was last month. We were actually going to purchase it and keep it as a rental, but have since decided it just makes more sense to actually flip it and go ahead and sell it. So I'm going to break down my thoughts, the process, how it all panned out, because this definitely could have worked out different ways. And this definitely could have potentially worked out where we kept it as a rental instead of a flip. And I think ultimately, it's always a numbers game, right? I try to never have any emotion involved whatsoever when buying and selling properties, right? To me, it's always comes down to the numbers. It's a numbers game, and if the numbers don't work out, it should never make sense. So in this case, I'm going to kind of go back how this got started. One of the agents on our team got a call from a friend whose son was in a rough situation about to foreclose on a house, and they needed to sell it quickly. However, well, it's not necessarily however, but the weird thing is it was definitely going to foreclose in December, so they had to sell it very quickly. But they basically abandoned it, for I'm going to say at least 1 or 2 months it had been abandoned. And middle of living in the home, scenario I want to paint to you is middle of eating dinner and just get up and with kids and just get up and leave. So there's food all in the fridge. There's personal items everywhere. Crazy stuff. There's dirty diapers everywhere, not even in the trash. By the time that I got to it and seen it for the first time, right, it'd probably been abandoned for at least 1 or 2 months, I would assume. Utilities were actually off, had no utilities on, so they had been turned off. And the place was not a disaster, meaning from a flipping the home and rehabbing it necessarily. It definitely needed some work, and I'll get into that. But it was just really the personal items. So first time I seen it, and we kind of discussed the numbers that they were wanting. I just told them we weren't interested. It was just too much work. I don't like buying things that require work. I don't like getting handymen or contractors involved. And it's just because it's not that I don't have the connections. It's not that I don't know people. It's just, man, usually they just, I don't know. I just don't like putting myself in a position to get screwed, and I feel like sometimes working with contractors and handymen, ultimately you end up sometimes getting screwed, right? It's happened to me. For people that's been doing work for me for a while, and all of a sudden the next one, I paid them all up front in the deal, and they screwed me, and never gave me my money back. So it's kind of I've learned some hard lessons over the years, but with this one. So I just said, hey, not interested. Well, it kind of comes back around where it's not been sold yet. And I was like, hey, here's what I would give you to buy it, right? In order for me to buy this and take this on, here's would be, right? You have to get everything out of the house, right? You don't have to clean it. I'm not worried about getting clean. You have to get everything out of the house. All right, all your personal items, all that stuff, everything out of the fridge, right? We'll take care of everything from there. And here's my number. Well, they, obviously sit on it for a while. Well, they ended up getting, kind of another bidder come in, because, they're looking to sell it, looking to get the most money. I don't blame them. So another bidder come in, they were cash, which I was not planning on going cash. I do not like going cash at all. And especially for rentals, right? I've talked about that in a lot of videos. There's really, you have the Dave Ramsey method of things, and I do believe in that. I do think it works. My method is a little bit more scaling, and therefore putting 20% down, which is the requirement on investment property, and using 80% of the bank's money, and getting the cash flow and scaling like there. That's my mindset. That's my strategy. Whether people think it's wrong or right, that's what I'm going with. So I didn't really want to go cash, but with another one coming in, cash, quick close, like crap, we're going to have to go cash. And still the whole plan here is, okay, we're going to go cash. We're going to fix this up, and then basically I'm going to refinance, pull my money out, and refinance and pull my money out, then we'll just keep it as a rental, right? Because there is no tax benefits in flipping a property. Zero. There's nothing. You can't, the only, again, it's not even a tax benefit, but of course, paying the workers to do the work, obviously that's not profit, so you write that off. But there is no benefits to flipping as far as taxes, and I'm all about saving money on taxes. So our whole plan throughout this is, okay, well, we end up getting the home under contract. Took them a little bit longer to get utilities on, because I was like, hey, I got to get utilities on. I got to make sure that, there's not cement down the drain and everything still works fine and crazy stuff. So we get all that worked out. Well, we end up closing on it. I'm like, great. So during the process, right, I'm reaching out. I end up getting three kind of bids. Ended up going with somebody that was actually a referral from somebody else that had done good work. Just kind of had a good feeling, and I felt the person had a lot to prove for themselves trying to get started in this industry as far as doing work, and I felt like we could kind of expand that relationship into future dealings, whether if it's for clients or for us personal. Ended up working out really well. The guy did really well. Very, very good communication. The work was extremely well done. Attention to detail. We're actually going up there today. It's finished. He told me about 3 weeks. Again, a few little bumps and here and there that are typically going to happen. And he basically just finished up yesterday. So we're going to go today again for our final walkthrough, just to make sure that everything's good. But again, this whole time, kind of from him starting, I went ahead and started reaching out to lenders, right? Because I always tell people to shop. I practice what I preach. So I reached out to lenders. I'm like, hey, I bought this house. I want to go ahead and refinance, pull my money back out. And the concept behind it was, because you got to keep at least 20% down. Well, and I'll give you the numbers, right? We're able to buy it for $155,000, and I knew if I put about $15,000 into it, that I should be able to sell it for $250,000, really no problem. Potentially even multiple offer in a slow market, $250,000. I was going to realistically, I do think it's worth probably $260,000, but I want to turn and burn, right? I want to get it sold, and I think at that $249,000, which is what I'm going to list this home as, probably here we'll have it listed in about a week or two. I think as potential multiple offers create a better scenario for me, because there's a bunch of buyers that are approved for $250,000 but not approved for $260,000. So I want to hit that market, right? I practice what I preach in my own. It's my first time ever doing a flip, right? So you get a prime example. If I've ever comped your home, I was like, hey, your home's worth $305,000, but I'm telling you, if it was me, I'd list it at $299,000, right? I'm practicing exactly what I preach. I comped this home at $260,000, no problem, but I'm going to go $249,900 because I think it makes just based on activity. Sorry, this phone call there. And so the main reason why we've decided to now flip this instead of keeping it as a rental is because for me to refinance it, I can't get the money out that I want. And I wasn't aware of this, right? You learn. I've always heard of what's called the Burr method or something, and I forget what it all stands for. But definitely refinance is in there. So my plan was, okay, well, we'll do this. You know what? I will buy it. I will refinance because it's going to be worth $250,000. Well, I'm only going to say, hey, I want $200,000. So I'm going to basically pull $160,000 out. Or I think my money was $210,000, whatever it was. Because I think I'm going to be all in at $170,000. Right? So I can't remember my exact. Okay, back. But anyways, I was going to refinance it at the number that basically allowed me to pull the money that I had in it, which is going to be $170,000 right back out. Right? So I was going to put in the work, pull my $170,000 back out, which is what I would basically have in it. Therefore, I would have all my money back out and now have an asset that I can rent and cash flow. We did the rental numbers. It was going to be good rental numbers, probably $1,800 a month. That was probably going to cash flow us at that price, probably around $300-400 a month, which at 7% interest is a great cash flow because it's hard to make anything cash flow, let alone getting $300-400. So that was the plan. But lenders basically all told me, no, because you just recently bought it, we will only allow you to basically pull your purchase price out plus your repairs and then basically minus 20%. So essentially they were only going to allow me to pull out $130,000, get $130,000 back, which means I would have an additional $40,000 tied up, so $40,000 tied up into it, and then it's worth another $30,000 to $40,000. So arguably I would have $80,000 to $100,000 of equity in this home. And that $80,000 to $100,000 of equity is only paying me $300 to $400 a month. That's not a good turnaround. That's not a good investment. I'm not going to give somebody $80,000 and say, yeah, just pay me back at $300 a month. That's not good numbers. So I was thinking I was like, well, geez, I don't want $80,000 tied up in this. That doesn't make sense. And so again, I kept trying to find lenders that would allow me to kind of pull out and get the numbers and keep it as a rental, but nobody wanted to do it. And I know lenders are real tight right now because of the market. So because of that, I was like, we're going to have to flip this home. And the reason I have to flip it is because, well, we'll sell it at $250. Let's just say after everything is done, we got a $240 walk away. I'm in at $170. Arguably, we're just going to say a $70,000 profit. Well, I'm going to get that's $70,000 of pure profit. I can take that $70,000 of pure profit. I can buy another one or two, and obviously if I find one. It's not like that I'm like, oh yeah, I can go over here and for sure spend it, right? When the timing's right and the scenario is right, I can buy another one or maybe even two, to get more of a cost segregation, to get more of a tax write-off, and to get more cash flow than what that one was going to have, to make that money make sense. So that is why I'm like, well, we have to flip it. It makes no sense to keep $80,000 to $100,000 in equity in this home and get $300-400 a month, when I could basically take that money and arguably, let's just say $80,000 of profit, $80,000 of profit at 20%. That buys almost a $400,000 house, right? And so for the cost seg, when you do a cost segregation study, they look at obviously the purchase price. Well, this one I purchased at $155, so the cost seg is not going to be that great. Whereas I can take the 80, basically go buy a $400,000 house, and my cost seg is almost triple in my tax write-off. So it all comes down to a numbers game. And this is nothing that I would have known day one buying my first rental, right? This is nothing. This is, we have 16 full-time rentals now. This would have been the 17th, the purchase. I had all plans on, I think it would have been a great rental. Had plans nothing but for it, but when it comes down to it and you really have a ton of equity in it, it just makes sense. That's why the 1031 is so powerful. The 1031 exchange. If you don't know what that means, just run a YouTube video on it. It's basically you as an investor, you can sell your property, roll all the profit into another property, and then get all the tax write-offs again for the new property there. So you basically don't ever get access to your money as you keep rolling it over, but you keep doing what I do as the cost segregation studies, taking the giant tax write-offs year one, which basically then offsets my income from, real estate and insurance and everything else that we have income from. Even income from the rental property. So it offsets that money. So I wanted to share this video with you guys, just kind of talking about it. And again, I didn't do any notes on it. I've had this in my to-do list there for a while, but I feel like every time I've been in showings and that, I've been on the phone and I've never had a chance to really get to a video in a while. So we're going to be listening. It's up in Corrington, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a little over 1,000 square feet, great home, single level, 1-car garage, relatively all updated now. The master bath's all completely redone except for the tub, which looks brand new, essentially what we've done to it, but new flooring in there. And again, we've done a lot to this house, and it'll look great. And obviously I'll keep you guys updated, right? And, I'm practicing what I preach. Definitely something that I want to emphasis there, where I do think for sure is worth $260. I'm going to list it at $249.9 for marketing purposes for that $250 buyer, and really try to turn and burn, right, and get access to my money. Because the thing is, that's a lot of money to have tied up. And so the problem, and what I've been talking to some friends, some other investors, even some banks and stuff, on lines of credit. It's like, well, what happens, right? I got all this money tied up. That kind of empties our war chest, right, for the time being. So if another property popped up tomorrow, I don't have access to those funds to buy something, and I would love to have it. So now it's got me kind of thinking more of a scaling perspective of, all right, how do I get access to money if and when my money is currently tied up for certain deals? So this really is just kind of expanded my thought as being in real estate, and to potentially this is our first flip. I don't have a desire to be like, I want to become a flipper, or hey, I'm actively looking for flips. I'll say the scenario, right, if it falls in our lap and the numbers make sense, I'm going to take it. Now this makes me feel a lot better about it versus before. I've kind of always shied away from it. There's probably several opportunities in the last 2 years that I could have flipped homes, but a lot of times we've just bought them and kept them as an investment property. And as a rental, because again, I want the tax advantages. I don't want the income is arguably kind of like a negative in a way, because I got to pay taxes on it. So now I just made $70,000, $80,000 of income here. Now that will be subject to capital gains, luckily, so it's not going to be subject to, well, I guess short-term capital gains is my tax rate. So now what I got to do is I got to go out and, because I won't sell this till 2025. So now I basically have a whole year to find 1, 2, 3 properties that I can buy. I can do the cost seg study, and hopefully that will offset my income there to get me down in that low tax bracket, or even potentially show, a loss, right? Which is the goal of every investor. Show a loss, so therefore you don't arguably kind of quote unquote pay the taxes. We pay taxes, just not what a lot of people think, right? We pay a ton in taxes, but that's kind of my goal there. And so that way, when it comes to it, right, if I'm in a very low tax bracket, well, that's all my capital gains I would pay on it. So I'm trying arguably to spend a whole year now to find the tax write-offs, not to pay taxes on that profit, and even the profit of course, all the other businesses, right? That's how the game is played. And unfortunately, fortunately, the game is fair for everybody. You just got to educate yourself. I've watched hundreds of hours of YouTube videos and podcasts to learn the tax code. I don't say learn the tax code because I don't know like the code numbers, but I know taxes very well. I understand them. I understand how the game is played. Once you understand how the game is played, really, it's like, man, you can't fault for people. It's literally in the tax code. You can't fault people for not paying taxes when they're literally following the law. So I highly encourage you to educate yourself on that, no matter what your job is, how much money you make, because there's a lot of benefits in knowing that, especially if you ever wanted to be an entrepreneur or open up any type of side. I'm talking even like lawn care. You open up a side business for lawn care, the tax benefits for you on a write-off is huge, and it would, even it not being a profitable business, you can write off cell phones and gas and all that, to where if you're W-2 you can. So as always, guys, if you got questions, real estate insurance, always happy to help, but wanted to share this video of a good insight of, we ended up kind of buying this as a rental, pivoting, and now we're going to flip it and sell it, and purely because of the capital was too much to keep in it for what it was going to pay us. That money is better used for me getting it and putting it to use elsewhere. So questions, holler anytime.